This is OwlUp, where learning happens in minutes, not hours. For a deeper journey, explore all our courses at owlup.co. Now, let's dive in. Welcome to Chapter 1 of our series, Microeconomics, the study of individual choices. In this episode, titled Introduction to Microeconomics, we'll explore the fundamental principles that guide individual decision-making in our everyday lives. So, whether you're curious about why we buy certain products or how choices affect our economy, let's dive in. Right now, you're making an economic decision. You chose this podcast over all the other things you could be doing. That trade-off is microeconomics in action. Here's the twist. The same logic behind this tiny choice also shapes gas prices, wages, and even your next raise. Economists zoom in on these everyday choices because, together, they quietly steer entire markets. A single shopper switching from brand-name cereal to store brand barely matters, but when millions make similar moves, factories retool, ads change, and shelf space gets rearranged. That's the power of individual decisions scaling up. To study this, microeconomics leans on a few powerful tools. It tracks how buyers react when prices move, how sellers respond when their costs change, and how both sides adjust when new options appear. Streaming platforms tweaking subscription plans, rideshare apps changing surge pricing, local cafes experimenting with loyalty cards, all are live experiments in how people respond to incentives and information, and how, quietly, prices and resources get reshuffled in response. Microeconomics asks a simple question. Given all this bustling activity, are we using our scarce time, money, and talent in a smart way, or wasting them without noticing? It studies not just who buys what, but who could have produced something better or earned more if options or rules were different. That's where opportunity cost and marginal thinking quietly guide better choices. Policies like minimum wages, rent controls, or taxes all tweak these margins, shifting who enters a market, which jobs get created, and which ideas never leave the drawing board. Look closely at almost any headline about business or policy, and you're really seeing a micro-story hiding in plain sight. A streaming platform reshuffles its subscription tiers, a city caps rideshare vehicles, a coffee chain rolls out a new rewards program. Behind each move is the same question. How will people change their behavior if we tweak the rules or the prices just a bit? Microeconomics turns that question into a toolkit. One part of the toolkit studies who actually has power in a market. Not all markets look alike. Some feel like crowded app stores with thousands of small developers vying for attention. Others resemble a single dominant operating system that sets the standard for everyone else. Economists classify these structures: competitive, monopolistic, oligopolistic, because the number of players and how intensely they jostle helps predict prices, profits, and innovation. Another part focuses on how responsive people are. When gasoline prices jump 10% and drivers only cut back 2 to 3%, that tells you fuel is something people feel they can't easily substitute away from, at least in the short run. The same rise in the price of a luxury streaming add-on might cause half its users to cancel. Different elasticities mean the same tax, rule, or cost shock can ripple very differently across markets. Then there's the question of when markets stumble. Some goods don't fit neatly into you pay, you get transactions. A factory's pollution, a social network's data practices, or a crowded highway generate costs or benefits that spill onto bystanders. Microeconomics maps these spillovers and helps design responses, like congestion pricing, emissions markets, or privacy regulations, that nudge private decisions closer to social well-being. Even inside firms, micro-thinking shows up. Amazon's recommendation engine, responsible for a huge slice of its revenue, is essentially real-time demand analysis. Which product, at which moment, placed in front of which user, shifts the next marginal click. Companies test price points, product bundles, and wages the way scientists run experiments, hunting for the tiny adjustments that unlock large behavioral shifts. If macroeconomics sketches the skyline of an economy, microeconomics is the structural engineering. It studies the beams, load-bearing walls, and stress points that determine whether the whole thing stands, flexes, or collapses when conditions change. Watch what happens on a popular gaming platform when a new title drops at a discount. Players shift hours toward it, streamers feature it, advertisers follow the eyeballs, and smaller games quietly lose attention. Microeconomics reads this pattern as data, not just what people like, but how strongly they pivot when deals, reviews, or updates change. You see similar forces when a city opens protected bike lanes. A slice of commuters switches from cars, cafes pop up along the route, and repair shops gain customers. Choices about routes and vehicles ripple into commercial rents, hiring, and even local tax revenue. Now zoom into your own day. Every time you skip a subscription trial, wait for a sale, or accept a surge-priced ride, you're effectively running a tiny experiment about value, risk, and timing. Firms treat those revealed preferences like a live dashboard, tuning product design and algorithms to match them, or to nudge them. Micro is the language for decoding those feedback loops. Surging AI, climate stress, and digital platforms are quietly rewriting the puzzles microeconomists study. Personalized prices can shift from broad sales to one-off offers tuned to your clicks, like a chess engine studying your past moves. Carbon limits may turn clean air and water into central inputs firms must budget for. And as nudges, crypto, and decentralized markets spread, the old lines between choice and manipulation, money and code, market and community get progressively blurrier. Micro tools also double as a mindset. You start spotting hidden prices on your time, attention, and data, much like noticing the stats behind every move in a strategy game. As we add AI assistance, crypto rails, and climate constraints, your everyday choices become input into systems you can question, game, or redesign, not just passively move through. Before next week, ask yourself, 1. When I think about my own life this week, things I bought, skipped, or postponed, where did I clearly feel the impact of scarcity, and how did that shape my choices? 2. Looking at one decision I made, like eating out versus cooking, or studying versus scrolling, what were the real opportunity costs I paid that I didn't notice in the moment? 3. If I treated myself as a rational consumer for just one purchase today, how would I consciously weigh my marginal benefit against the marginal cost before deciding yes or no? This was OwlUp, your daily step forward. To keep learning with structured courses and more insights, go to owlup.co. Until tomorrow!